Hi guys, welcome to today's video. We have a special guest, Reese Harper, all the way from Utah in the US. Reese is a CFP and a founder of the advisory practice Dentist Advisors. He also is the CEO of Elements, which he'll talk about today, which is a technology company to help advisors with their financial planning. And he runs the Elementality podcast as well. One thing I love about Reese is he founded his practice, but was very niche focused, very focused on dentists. So I want to figure out why and how he got that kind of clarity way back in 2007, that's 14 years ago now. So stick with us. You're going to get a lot out of today's podcast. Hi, Reese. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Paul. Good to see you again, man. It's been not too long since me and you were just chatting on my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
we had you on Elementality just a month or two ago, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a couple of months ago. And listen, I'm really excited to talk to you today. You are quite a unique beast in the financial services industry. And I say that in a very complimentary way. What I mean by that is obviously you're a qualified CFP and you founded your own advisory practice, but you've now obviously transitioned to the technology side of things as well, and you're running a podcast too. So you've really got a lot of different strings to your bow. So I'm really fascinated to kind of dig into that and see, how you made some of those moves. I would argue there's a lot of CFPs out there that wouldn't even think to approach it in the way you have. Maybe to kick us off, can you tell us a bit about Dentist Advisors and how you were able to kind of really drill that down and just go after the dentist rather than just having a more general advisory practice?
Yeah, well, I think I tend to be a little bit early in the things I try to work on. I found that with software that I'm working on right now, I'm definitely working on a problem that I think is the problem that really exists in like 2 or 3 years, but I'm a little early on it.
Right.
And when I was starting my advisory practice, the advice I got was actually, I remember there was a guy named Peter Montoya, and he was like big into financial advisor marketing. And I went to a conference like right when I started, and his pitch was the brand called you. Like that's the thing you got to do. It's like you got to brand yourself and like make sure that you're known. And I remember thinking like I could see why he said that. Like I remember thinking like that makes sense if your goal is to like have people know about you and come find you and come to you, if you want to create a brand around yourself. But I remember thinking like, how would my clients feel? Like how do I get someone to call me, right? Or how do I get someone to be able to know that I want to talk to them? Right. Not in the big ocean of people, but like I felt I was young. I mean, I was in my 20s. I felt intimidated. I knew that everyone was going to say, you're too young. You're not, you don't have enough experience. I can't like go compete with all these like successful financial advisors that were a lot older than me. So yeah. I thought, what if I went after like a specific type of person, instead of like branding my business around me, what if we branded it around that person? Right. And then that way, maybe people would ask less questions about my age.
Was it an SEO play? I mean, was that the thinking behind it?
Well, I thought, at the time I was like, well, I had been taught, I started the business in 2003, from 2003 to 2007 and I was at Northwestern Mutual, working for some other advisors there. And that was a very outbound cold calling kind of sales culture. And I felt like it was really hard to ever differentiate when I would call someone on the phone. I would have to like pick a topic, I'd have to be like, hey, I'm calling about HSAs, or hey, I'm calling about taxes, or hey, I'm calling about this new thing, because no one wants to like have a general financial conversation with a cold caller. Right. And I guess there was always kind of this feeling of why should someone care? Well, when I was cold calling, they would care only if I had something very specific that was very interesting to contemplate, like HSA plans just launched, and it was like the first thing at that time, and I guess as I started looking at dentist, when I launched my own practice, as I thought about branding, as I thought about positioning, I didn't launch with dentists right out of the gate. Right. I launched with a more generic brand. for that first
Everybody
year.
does. Everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But really quickly, I just started feeling like lost in the ocean, and I was like, okay, I gotta look at like who I'm going to go after. I looked at my current clientele. I had like one dentist and, one attorney and a couple of other business owners. And the dentist itself, like, I just liked this person better. We got along really well. But I also noticed that they had like super low financial IQ and a lot of financial jobs they were trying to get done. Right. They had a lot of complexity. So it's like complexity combined with low financial IQ made me kind of go, I felt most valuable to that person. I felt like, wow,
the sweet spot, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't realize at the time that I was like actually doing what I know today, like I could do some really formal research and probably show people which occupations in the country actually value wealth management more than others. And it does have to do with their level of financial interest and IQ and the intersection between that and complexity. So complexity and financial knowledge, like to the degree that the financial knowledge is low and the complexity is high, that's the place that values financial advisors the most. And if their financial IQ is super high and their complexity is low, like that's a bad place to target. So
it's a big leap, though. This is what I find very interesting. Like, I think you're absolutely right. And this is something, as a marketer, we talk to advisors about all the time. One of the first conversations I have with almost every prospective client of ours is, okay, you need to niche down. You need to be clear about who your target audience is. And this is something you essentially figured out yourself and went after yourself. How quickly did you see the results of that? How quickly did that really start to work?
It didn't play out probably for a year.
Right.
To where I was really certain that it was even working. And even into probably my second and third year, I would say I was questioning whether it was really going to work. Right. So I wish it was faster than that. But I think today, knowing what I know, I think I could probably get results within that first year and get real confident. To be honest, I actually don't think it matters. Like, you will get results if you actually focus. I know that, it's just a question of which marketing channel would you have to like go down to get to the customer. That takes a while and you have to test, and it won't be the same for every occupation. Like dentists are on Facebook like all the time, right? But they're not touching LinkedIn. They're not touching Instagram. They're not touching Twitter. And lawyers, completely different. Like the channels are just different in my experience. And so it'll take you a while to figure out your channels, but I just have high confidence that you can, that at least going after something is much better than going after nothing.
Right.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Well, it gives you clarity and it gives you focus, and it means your message you're putting out there is talking to a specific audience, which is always going to resonate more, isn't it?
There's a lot of reasons why dentistry ended up working, but I'm trying to give everyone the version of my mentality at the time, which wasn't super sophisticated. It was just, I feel like I'm lost in an ocean of people. How am I going to like survive or die if I don't start like making more progress faster? And
you grew this into quite a big practice. I know it still operates today. How many advisors will be part of that practice?
I think there's 20 employees now, but I think there's 7 advisors now full time. And they're going to add, between 150 and 200 clients this year between those 7. So it's like, we will have to add by the end of the year another advisor, maybe a second by, every advisor right now is going to get, 20, 30 clients this year from the marketing effort of the business. And every year that marketing effort just gets better because we continue to dedicate a percentage of our, revenues to marketing, and that budget just gets bigger, and we can continue to buy more customers as we grow.
Right. Now, obviously you went on to make the leap into the more technology IT side of things with Elements. And did that come out of solving your own problems as part of, the advisory practice? Is that where that came out of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm solving a problem in, like, my practice at Dentist Advisors had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We solved it, and this technology, I think, solves this problem for other firms too.
Right.
The problem is the next generation of financial services buyers, wealth management customers.
Yeah.
If you look at JD Power research, if you look at Accenture research, look at Fidelity research, under the age of 40 right now, 70+% of those people say they would prefer a subscription or fixed fee model. I know that sounds crazy
Mm-hmm.
to people listening right now, but AUM fees for people under 40, that is going to be a question mark for those people.
Right.
At least at the rate that it has been in the past, because 50 and up, 40 and up, subscription kind of model financial advice is 30% of those customers want it. You know, it's a much lower percentage because they're happy. They've got lots of money. They're fine paying AUM fees because it gets them access to the people that they're working with right now. Yeah. But if that wealth transfers to the next generation, they have to pick. I'm just telling you that most of these next generation customers, they're looking for a matching of value to fees mm-hmm. in a more thoughtful way. They're not just going to be okay with pick your AUM percentage and I'll buy. You know, they want value matched up with their fee.
And it's a huge threat, though, to the industry globally because the model is not designed that way. Like,
yeah,
it sounds like
I'm not telling you that. I'm not saying that the industry's perfectly suited to respond, but technology is going to respond. Like when there's in marketing, there's supply side forces and demand side forces.
Right.
And as you know, Paul, and the demand side right now, the consumer, the client is clearly saying, I want more holistic financial planning mm-hmm. for my money.
Right.
I want a coach. I want a counselor. I want a financial shrink. I want a CFO. I want you to do things. Mm-hmm. Well, the market is not giving people that right now. I mean, on average, the market's giving people a portfolio, sitting on it and waiting for the client to call.
Right.
And so I was targeting the younger generation. Right. It's, as you all know out there, it's really hard to get people to switch financial advisors. Like it's hard. Most of you have these practices that you've built over a decade or more, just like I did. Mm-hmm. And your wealthy clients who have lots of money, they didn't always have money. Mm. They got money with you over time. Most of them did. And so you're not going to lose those people. People can't steal them from you because you've built the relationships. You've earned them. They're not going to leave you overnight. You don't have to be worried about that. Mm-hmm. But people picking you, new people, they're not going to pick you without a really transparent value proposition. And I found this out at Dentist Advisors going, my gosh, like, okay, younger generation, right? That's who I have to work with. Mm-hmm. They don't have a lot of AUM. Right. And I'm either going to go compete with people that have AUM, like I'm going to go try to steal a client that has AUM, mm-hmm. which is really hard to get people to switch.
Yep.
Or I'm going to have to attract the next generation. Mm-hmm. And the next generation is saying they want more planning. They want more value. Well, how can I do that? And how can I get paid? Mm-hmm. Because I can't get paid on their AUM. So how can I get paid? Well, they want access to me. What are they willing to pay? Well, looks like they're willing. Let's test it. I tested a bunch of different ways, like one-time fees, hourly rates, and subscription. Mm-hmm. And as the subscription economy started taking off, I found that worked the best. People wanted to pay me via a monthly payment. And yet I didn't have a system in place to deliver any kind of value on a monthly basis or even a regular or frequent or recurring basis. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can't just keep the same service model mm-hmm. that I had and pair it with a new fee and then do the same thing because it doesn't work. The old fee is just when you sit on people's money and charge a percent and you meet with them periodically, that works because the client's never actually giving you a transactional check or any kind of payment.
Right.
But this next world where the client doesn't have assets, but they want access to you, but you don't want to over deliver. You got to deliver them something small, something little, something easy for you to deliver and get them while they're young, have them exchange some money with you, then capture their assets. You can still charge them on an AUM basis if they're willing to pay that. In Dentist Advisor's case, we found that they were willing to pay a subscription plus an AUM fee. It's just, I could charge them 10% on their assets and I wouldn't make enough, because when we were starting out with them, most of them had 100 or 200 or, 250. So we charged an AUM fee plus a subscription, and then we let the subscription payment get paid by their assets over time.
Right.
And a lot of people are fine with that.
Yeah.
But some people are only going to want a fixed fee and they're not going to want to pay on assets. Some people are going to be paying for both because they're going to feel like at Dentist Advisors, a lot of our customers are like, man, these guys, though, they're like dentist advisors. So if they say it's someone else to compete with me would have to say maybe they're cheaper on their subscription and they don't charge anything on AUM. In my case, I can say I do charge on AUM and on subscription, and I can get that customer at the same maybe conversion rate as someone who has a weaker value proposition. Like if you work with lawyers and you try to take a dentist from me, it's going to be hard, even if you're cheaper. Vice versa, right?
And the specialist will always win against the generalist, if you ask me.
Yeah. And so I don't think AUM fees are going to die. I'm just saying that for some reason, the next generation is saying, I want more transparency here. We're not totally clear if what they want is a fixed rate or if what they want is just a subscription so they can get started earlier, or if they're fine paying both, but you're going to have to deliver more value. Like what I'm finding is I'm going to have to probably do their taxes and do their estate planning and coordinate their life, walk their dog if I want to get paid 1% on, $5 million. Like if I want to get $50,000 in the future from a client, there's going to have to be a lot of value delivered.
Yeah.
But they also want to engage me in their 20s, and I can't engage them if they don't have any money. So what I had to do is I've got to create a financial planning system of value that's targeting that generation. And, deliver on that value, and that's where the technology was born. And
something you talk a lot about is client experience. So the experience that the client has with an advisory practice, how the technology can kind of assist that. And I kind of like, you have a few different taglines for elements. So what I liked was repeatable, ongoing financial planning made easy. Yeah, that seems very clear to me, and that I'm all about clarity. I like a message to be clear and for it to kind of be self-evident. You read it and it just makes sense, and that to me kind of makes sense. And was that your goal? Was to just give that clarity? Was that what you were trying to do?
Well, I think the goal is it's a combination of two things. Yes, we wanted a very clear product that the client could know they were buying, right? We're going to do these elements is a scorecard, a very, it's ratios that measure someone's financial health and track it over time. It's also a set of progress reports that we track over time. And it's essentially like a monitoring system, not so much a one-time deliverable of a plan. This next generation does not want a plan, by the way. They don't want a one-time thing. They want a relationship that they can access over their lifetime. And the way they want to access it just seems to be up in the air, not up in the air. They want a subscription model. That's what they're saying. So anyway.
I like the fact that you seem to focus a lot on the mobile experience and the mobile app and how accessible that is, as you say, for the next generation, through mobile devices. Again, has that sort of come from your feedback from people of how they want to experience?
Well, I mean, for sure, it's come from, but I would say that's just a global trend. Consumers are not on the desktop anymore.
Right.
They are for very specific jobs. But as a primary device, the phone is ubiquitous with the next generation. And even for all of us, that's basically the case. And the type of what we're trying to do with financial planning is turn it into an ongoing engagement, turn it into something that's accessible regularly to the end user. If we do that on desktop as the primary interaction, like it's just going to result in less engagement.
Right.
So if I want the types of jobs I want the consumer to do in my financial planning process are verify data for me, give me updates to certain things, let me see their full financial picture. Well, the advisor needs a place to work on desktop, because they entering data is it can be difficult to enter lots of data from a phone. But like maintaining data, like just updating a few numbers here and there, it's actually quite suited to a phone. And push notifications and mobile communication are much more likely to get engagement than email, PDFs, and the traditional kind of phone call desktop interaction. So we just focused on mobile development as the way to kind of optimize for client engagement.
Yeah.
But we also think advisors that have a strong comfort level with their mobile device when they're out and about, moving around, and it's going to also increase engagement. So if you're an advisor that waits to get to the office to check your email to then get back to the client, and 3 or 4 days later, after someone researches something, you can give them an answer. That's not going to be as good as advice on demand.
Right.
When client says, I have a question, and you pull out the question comes to you on your device. You look at your device, the client data is accurate. You can give an answer because your scorecard of the client sitting there right in front of you. That's where we think the future's at. Faster engagement, more regular touches. Mobile's just about this global trend of like where engagement's happening more. And we just think it's right now, financial planning systems, CRMs, like these are all desktop centric experiences. We think desktop's still going to play a role for a long time, but like mobile is the future for both the advisor and the client.
I was interviewing Carl Richards recently. I think you know Carl as well, and one of his big topics was that the financial plan is out of date pretty much from the moment you finish writing it. It's out of date. And he's right. It is, because it's not a static beast. It's a kind of a moving target, so to speak. So with what you're doing and all the updates and sort of how the client experience works, is it to make it more of a living, breathing beast that's actually relevant at the time? Is that the point?
Yeah, it starts primarily with the first kind of thing you want to engage with the client is a real holistic understanding of their net worth, all the real estate assets, all the business equity, all the entities in a personal financial statement. That's something that you should be tracking over time and monitoring that over time. We have a 3-month progress reporting process inside the app where the client is verifying data, the advisor is giving follow-up questions, client progress is being measured like on a granular level by account, asset by asset, grouping by grouping, in a very simple user interface. You're able to say your net worth went up by this much over the last 3 months, or your net worth went down by this much over the last 3 months. And that's either at risk, that's either normal, or that's like awesome. And let's talk about why it happened, like what part of your balance sheet that occurred in. And what adjustments we might want to make from here on a more frequent basis. It's like this whole like annual review thing is not going to be frequent enough for the next generation customer. They want more advice more frequently in smaller bite-sized chunks that are easier for them to digest.
And if you're an advisor now, you're early in your career, you're trying to figure things out, and you're trying to work out what this client experience should look like. Can you give them a few sort of quick fire tips of what they can actually do to level up their client experience?
Well, okay, independent of my technology, because let's say the first thing you do is just buy elements and then you'll be fine.
Problem solved.
But if you're trying to create, like, I would say the 3 kind of things to consider are what moments are you going to deliver to your client that matter on a regular basis? What moments really matter to each end client? Like that if you're not delivering moments that matter on a frequent basis, like you're not actually meeting, like you'll retain existing clients because, like I said, for quite a while, switching costs are still going to be high.
Yeah.
But I will hard. Like people are not going to leave you overnight, but there is going to be a point in time in the next few years where people are going to start leaving their advisor.
Yeah.
And it's going to be because it's easier to sort of, it's much cheaper and they get much more value with another advisor. Mm-hmm. And right now, when everyone's charging like, it's like 1% for this guy and 1% for this guy, and all the deliverables are kind of the same and it's the same value prop. That's part of the reason why there's not any like really changing of advisors. It's because like the product appears to be the same person to person and the price is the same person to person. So why would I change? It's like the same price for the same thing from the same people. So, but like if someone like me comes around and says, no, for $295 a month, you're going to get this and you're going to get this and you're going to get this and this, and I'm not going to charge you any AUM fees.
Right.
Then, whoa, so you're going to save me 50% and give me more? Now I can see the difference. But when it was all mixed into percentages, you know, it's confusing to the client what they're actually going to get by switching.
Right.
If I say raw dollars, you're paying this, and raw dollars with me, you're going to pay this, and do you like it better? Now you're going to see some switching, but you'll also see that the younger generation will pick the more clear value proposition. Right. And so, absolutely. Yeah, anyway, moments that matter.
Right.
It's kind of my first thing. Like if you're not delivering regular moments that matter, it's going to be a problem.
Right.
And second is holistic, kind of comprehensive. You're doing everything. That's what this generation is looking for too. They want taxes, they want estate planning, they want cash flow, they want net worth tracking, they want like all product expertise, they want documentation management. Like they just want a good financial coach that's looking at the big picture. They don't want just investment advice anymore. So holistic, number two. The third one I'd say they really need to keep an eye on, from my point of view, is your pricing. Right. I think if your pricing is still stuck in this AUM only and you're not moving towards some kind of defined subscription, I think you're going to have a rude awakening in like 5 years. Right. Because they always say this in software development, and it I think applies in wealth management. It's difficult to move up market, but it's impossible to move down market. Right. And what that means is if you have a business model right now that is so top heavy that your livelihood is depending on a few select number of relationships, 90% of your revenue coming from like 10% of your clients, or the old 80-20 rule. Yeah. It's going to be really hard for you to get down market ever to survive. You can't move down, and you can't get to the place where everyone's going to be if you're essentially like deriving most of your revenue from a very select number of clients. Like fundamentally, other firms, there's RIAs all over the country right now, where they're going to continue to deliver more innovative subscription pricing models that cut at that 80-20 rule. And if you don't start building that yourself, which you don't have to start with your existing clients, you can start with new clients. You can convert some clients. You can attract some new clients in a different model. You've got to build a more stable revenue base so that when that wealth transfers and you lose a client, or when you're trying to like actually grow and you're facing even more headwinds in the future. Because right now, subscription, like I said, 3 out of 4 people are picking subscription. 1 out of 4 is picking AUM fees. Yeah. So you're still getting some people, but like, give it another 2-3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Like, I think you're going to wake up and go, all right, like we have to start pairing fees with value delivered. Right. Maybe if someone's only paying $99 a month, they're in a group training system in our practice, right? You don't get one-on-one advice for that, but you do get group advice, and we meet once a month at this date. Here's the tech, here's the tracking system, here's our content. Like, this is what we're delivering, and we're going to give you portfolios. And by the way, once you have more money with us, we're going to offset that $99 a month. But you don't get an advisor yet. You get an advisor if you want to pay $295, or you get an advisor with us if you want to pay $499. Like, that's our minimum subscription access point for this type of service. And that lets you like really start pricing your service. It lets you start innovating your services. But if you don't have a system that's like designed to like think about customers in that way and delivering service in that way, it's really hard to migrate. And that's where our technology is kind of like winning right now, is we're actually one of the only systems that can allow people to sort of evolve their business to the way where the market's headed. And these old systems, they're designed just to deliver one experience, which is a forward forecast, one-time deliverable, like Carl Richards said, where it's outdated within a couple of days, and it's like, that's not gonna demand, like, if you look at the renewal rates on quote plans, they're not very high. Like, people don't want to pay again for that Monte Carlo simulation. It's like,
I totally get it. Let me challenge you a little bit on this one. Now, I love the way you've worked on this a lot. You've obviously been an advisor. You've developed the technology. You see things. As you said, you see things a couple of years ahead, maybe, of other people, which is it's a unique skill. That's a great skill to have. It can be tricky when you're going into a market that isn't ready for
that.
Doing, but
yes.
But anyway, But what mistakes did you make along the way? Like, you seem to have your marketing pretty dialed in. You seem to have clarity around your message. You seem to have clarity around your niche, clarity around your pricing, and so on. What mistakes did you make? You had to trip over your shoes a few times along the way here, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well, I waited too late to pick a niche. I still picked one early enough, but I waited too long. The mistakes I would say I made are, and still continue to make, are the ones I'm trying to help people avoid today with some of my conversations around subscription modeling. Like, I didn't pursue that.
Right.
And still am working on breaking apart my service into accurate, like, service delivery models for people of various complexity, right? It's difficult to say, this is the package for this customer, this is the package for this customer. The truth is, not everyone needs the same thing. And right now, wealth management is delivering the same thing to every customer, regardless of complexity. And the fee difference has very little to do with the service delivered. So if someone has 100,000 or $1 million, it's kind of the same promise. And that's just, no business really can scale as well in that way, especially if there's alternatives. Other mistakes would just that I'd say have to do with not focusing on marketing early enough in my career. I maybe my first few hires being more planning oriented, administrative support, like we'll call it supply, right? And staffing up for growth, but I didn't have a demand gen program, wasn't really pushing clients in the door as fast.
Well, on that, so, I mean, if you were to start an advisory practice today, okay, you had no contacts, you'd no experience, you obviously had to build it from the ground up, what would you do?
Well, first thing is I would, depending on the demographic that I was in, meaning what market size of the population of the city I lived in, that would determine probably what I would do. But if I was in a big city, that makes it a little bit different than if I'm in a small market. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify the size of market of the customer I'm going to go after. So am I going to go after chiropractors? How many are local to me and how many are national? If I'm going to go after lawyers, what kind of lawyer am I going to go after? Because there's millions. So I don't want to go after all lawyers. I'm going to go after, a particular vertical, and I want to know how many of them there are and what pain points they face. For example, a contingency fee litigation attorney has some financial challenges that are going to be different than someone that does family law.
Right.
And so, and my recommendations are going to be a little different. And so I'm going to pick my customer. I'm going to figure out how many of them there are. I'm going to make sure it's a big enough market for me to go after. And then I'm going to start building some content of my own to sort of cultivate and nurture that market. And I'm going to keep putting money towards marketing before I hire more support staff, before I hire more financial planners. I'm going to be getting myself working 50 plus hours a week, 60 hours a week on just delivering the service while I put my profits towards a marketer to continue to juice up until I'm painfully just overwhelmed with new business. And then I'll hire a support person.
Right.
And I will, my own income won't really change during that whole period, right? Because I'm going to go from making nothing to making decent money to where I start, piling up cash in the practice enough to where I could hire someone, but only if our marketing was ramped up effectively. So if I was going to do it, today, like that's generally the direction I'd go from scratch. What questions do you have as you were thinking about that?
Well, I have lots of questions in relation to that. We'll see how much time we have. Yeah. But the thing I find interesting is because of your experience, you're saying you would focus a lot earlier on the marketing lead generation, getting that dialed in. So before taking on more support staff or other advisors, you would really go after the marketing side of things. That's the interesting bit of learning. I don't
even more
that way, so that's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, that's most of the mistakes. Like I do think that I would also, I made the mistake for quite a while using the wrong technology in my service model. Okay. So that's it's very clunky and very difficult to use a system that's super, super detail oriented, like, an eMoney, a Money Guide Pro, or Money Guide Pro is a little bit better. These cash flow based systems that are really granular in how accurate they get, they're incredibly accurate at predicting things like 30 years from now. But in terms of like getting engagement from the client, like short term, like I think like, it's almost better to not put them in technology sometimes because, it affects your experience. And like I said, the moments that matter are more important than like technology. Right. And so if your technology is not delivering these moments, if you're not it's not supporting your attempt at delivering value, it really gets in the way. And then it's no wonder that clients don't log into these portals and they don't look at the data. It's not delivering any moment to them that they care about. So
I noticed that you have a little thing with elements that automated nudges, for engaging client. What does an automated nudge look like? Is that a happy birthday message, or is it a bit more sophisticated?
Yeah, well, like there's we call them advisor prompts. Then we have client prompts, and our prompt engine, we've been tuning for the last 6 months. I wouldn't say that we're there. Like our first 100 firms that we have right now know that we've got some that are working really well, and we have prompts that we're fine tuning right now because it's difficult. The most important prompting that we think needs to happen is the advisor needs to be told in a prioritized way what things really they should be doing.
Right.
Not right now. The problem, Paul, is that we have these planning service models, and in order to analyze like what next step to take, we have to look at every client and go through like a massive checklist of things and figure out what applies to that client. But we have to look through the whole checklist to figure it out. Yeah. And in truth, what it should be is the checklist should be kind of looking at the clients and going, what things apply to each client and what does not apply, and then only surfacing the things that we need to actually do versus having us look at the whole thing, build essentially like inventory in our brain of like things that we're not even going to say because half of it doesn't apply. It just takes way longer. And so we envision a future where the client interacting with the technology and doing these nudges is creating nudges for the advisor that are precisely tied to the things that really need to be done for that client, and then ranking them in priority order and surfacing them to the advisor on a daily basis so that the advisor wakes up, looks at what they should do, and they can choose. They have control over deciding what to do, but at least there's some intelligent kind of prioritization there. Like Tom just added a house to his net worth. Like that's a big deal, acknowledge that and go have a quick conversation to him about collecting his HUD-1, keeping track of his, expenses so that, we can give it to his CPA at the end of the year. Or child was just added, or this client's net worth went down 10% this quarter. Like that is an unsustainable pace. That's going to require a reach out. Or negative net worth. Student just went from a negative net worth to a positive net worth, $1. Like that moment you got to like celebrate. So there's just
it sounds like sorry to cut across. It sounds like almost the utopia of how an advisor should properly run their practice, as in
it should, but yeah,
the key. Like I appreciate this complexity to it and so on, but like if you can get it properly dialed in, It kind of sounds like the way a practice should be run in my mind.
Yes. And it's very difficult to get the client to engage in a system like that when your technology is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And like most of these mobile applications, clients can't even log into to do anything anyway. They're all read only. They're not even like, you couldn't update data if you wanted to. So
that.
Anyway,
there's nothing worse than static mobile apps, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, are you serious?
One of my pet peeves.
Well, we used to, the reason they're that way is that these systems are designed to generate a plan, right? A forecast, a one-time analysis. And so if you let the client in to tinker with anything, it screws up all your assumptions.
Everything up. Yeah, there you
go. And so then you're like, oh my gosh, like, no, turn them off. Clients can't touch the data.
No,
and then
stop that. Good. Yeah, get off.
Yeah.
I know we're a little tight for time, so I won't keep you too long. But what's next for Reese? What's next for Dentist Advisors? What's next for Elements? What's the plan?
Well, I'm just thankful for anyone who's listening today that like showed up. So thanks a lot. I tend to sound really opinionated because I'm really passionate, and maybe some of you are like, he's way off on this future thing and where it's going. And I think that's a reasonable pushback. I want to just say regarding the first, 20-minute rant about subscription today, make sure that I do think that's the future. I don't know how fast it's going to come, but I think the principle more is whether people choose to pay with AUM or whether they choose to pay with subscription largely just has to do with where they're at in their life.
Right.
And when they don't have a lot of money, sometimes they're going to be more attracted to getting services. It's like we have an arbitrary line in the industry right now where it's like, once you have $500,000, talk to me. If you don't talk to me. And so, no wonder that this next generation is really interested. I think more than anything, it's showing that they want your help. They just want it before they used to be able to access it, because they don't want to wait till they have money to talk to you. They want to talk to you now. Right. And so that's an exciting kind of future. So what's next in my mind for me is I just really want to see, we have 10 million households getting really great service, from financial advisors. And we've got, 100 million, probably like at least 70 million households that they've never talked to anyone. Mm-hmm. And you got 30 or 40 million that are getting really underserved, in terms of just, you got $100,000 with us. You're on the kind of C list. We have these like segmentations of clients. It's like, these are the ones that don't make us any money. I want to see like us deliver actual advice and planning down market so that people can actually accumulate wealth and build wealth and grow and become one of those clients that has so much, because there's so much fulfillment, like helping people at that stage. And you can make it profitable if you have the right technology and you have the right heart and mindset and you deliver the right service, because you can't over deliver to that person, but they don't need it. They just want someone to just kind of be there, even if it's in group therapy. They're fine with that. It's just, we got to just I want to see more people like enter the advice market, like both planners, younger planners and younger advisors. I don't want to see more of the people that were priced out of the market before. I want to see them starting to get advice. Right. And that to me would just be like a big accomplishment if we can do that. So I'm focused on this for the next few years.
I totally agree. On that, if someone wants to learn a bit more about Elements or anything else, where should they go? What website would you send them to?
Yeah, well, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at reese@getelements.com. Just REESE at getelements.com, or you can go to getelements.com and book a demo there. You'll just get put on our calendar. You'll get content and learn about, how we're integrating this into firms. We've got some exciting releases coming up. I would say our true MVP product will be done by the end of this year, 2021. Right now we have our mobile experience. We're working on the desktop experience right now. That'll be the first kind of moment where advisors can see these next actions and really know what next step to take. We haven't surfaced that into the desktop until right now. So it's pretty exciting for me to finish getting the product truly to market. Right now, it's just been serving the needs of really younger firms who have no mobile solution to collaborate with clients and get their data. So it's been great. And anyway, go to that website and check it out. And then tune into the podcast if you want to, Elementality, which is on getelements.com. You can subscribe there.
Excellent. Reese, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate today, and best of luck now with the growth of Elements and Elementality, and of course, Dentist Advisors as well.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks.